I think it's such an amazing thing to have another language. My first words would have been in Farsi because I was 11 months old when I left Iran and came to the UK with my parents. I actually, got to be honest with you, when I was a child and my parents spoke Iranian in public, I actually used to feel quite embarrassed. Yeah.
What do you think changed your mind on that?
I just think growing up and just understanding that difference is a good thing. I fell in love with Italy and Italian culture, hence why I'm so happy to be here. And I learned to speak Italian fluently. Are you asking me if I have a BBC voice?
Yes, I am.
Yeah, absolutely I have a BBC voice, yeah. Also, have you noticed how when you present the news, you don't breathe?
This is Word for Word, a podcast about storytellers and the languages that made them. I'm Sophia Smith Galer. I'm a journalist who writes about language. And today I am so happy to be joined by Maryam Moshiri, who is a BBC news presenter who I'm sure you'll recognise from famous news stories such as I was at the coronation of King Charles. I was in Rome for the conclave. I've covered Eurovision a number of times. I have been on air during, various wars, including the war in Gaza and the war in Ukraine. I've had a front row seat at a lot of historical moments in recent years. So, yeah, I've been super lucky. I'm also kind of known for a few viral moments, which shall not be named, and just having a bit of fun as well on my show on the BBC, because I think that light and shade are important in the news, especially given the news cycle is just so relentless at the moment. I completely agree. Welcome to Casa Italiana, it's your first time here, I understand.
Yes, it's my first time. I love being immersed in all things Italian, and I feel like I am here. I even have a lovely latte as well to go with it.
You absolutely are. This was set up in the 60s to support the migrant Italian community, my mum being one of the teenagers at the time who would have come here and met all her mates. Lots of people in that generation would have met like their husbands and wives here, and I'm part of the sort of youth volunteer group trying to make it mean something for the next generation as well.
You can feel the history here, in the floorboards and the walls. It's cool, very cool.
I'm really happy to hear that. We are on the very noisy Clerkenwell Road, so if you hear any traffic, it will be that. Where does Maryam come from? Tell me about the origin of your name before you speak about the languages that shaped you.
Maryam is... I think actually I want to say it's a Persian name. Obviously, I'm Iranian, but it's a Muslim name as well. It's a name that translates into Italian as Maria and into English as Mary. It's a name my grandmother gave me, and I'm so happy with it because, first of all, Maryam Moshiri is alliterative, and I love that vibe. But also, it's a name I feel that is universal because it can translate in so many languages. The one thing I will say is when I was at primary school in South London in the 1980s, people used to call me Mary. Because in those days, there was less of an effort made by people to pronounce names that may have been construed as slightly difficult. And you may think Maryam's not difficult, but remember, it's early 1980s, things were different then. So at school, I was called Mary Moshiri, and I actually quite liked it. There was another girl in my class called Mary Flower. And because we were both called Mary, she was called Mary Flower and I was called Mary. And actually, I'm 48 years old and Mary Flower is still one of my very good friends and we still call her Mary Flower.
But you're the OG Mary despite not being a Mary.
I'm the OG Mary. And when I got naturalised as a British citizen, my parents put the name Mary on my form. So on my naturalisation certificate, it's Mary Moshiri. Only at the very last minute did my mum say, actually, do you know what? You're Maryam, and put Maryam on my passport. But I nearly turned into Mary Moshiri.
But also what blows my mind about that is that Miriam is very close and is a biblical name and should not be alien
The number of times I get called Miriam. The number of times. It's incredible. There's an A in my name and people still pronounce it as Miriam. And sometimes I let it go. If I'm not tired and I have energy and I'm happy and life is good, I let it go. If I'm annoyed and knackered, I'll pull someone up on it and say, actually, I'm Maryam, not Miriam. Depends on my mood.
Okay, Maryam, the artist formerly known as Mary. What are the languages that shaped you?
Oh, my goodness. Well, obviously Farsi, which is the language that's spoken in Iran. That is the language that I first spoke. My first words would have been in Farsi because I was 11 months old when I left Iran and came to the UK with my parents. And I know for a fact that I didn't speak any English as I was, growing up in that first year or so. I think at the age of 2.5, I started nursery, and that's where I actually learned to speak English. So actually, the very first language I spoke was Farsi. Later on in my life, I fell in love with Italy and Italian culture, hence why I'm so happy to be here. And I learned to speak Italian fluently. So that's another language that very much shaped me. I studied Italian at university. I spent a lot of time in Italy. I learned a lot about life, about cooking, about culture, about everything, spending time in Italy, and fell very much in love with the culture, the language, and the people. So I'd say those are the two languages, other than English, of course, which shaped my life.
So the first thing I want to hear more about is starting school and not speaking English. Do you have memories of that?
No, I don't. I don't have memories of that at all. All I remember ever doing is speaking Farsi at home. I'm going to say Iranian just for ease. Speaking Iranian at home and speaking English at school. And always just being bilingual. And that always just being a natural state for me. Being able to flip between the two languages, understand two languages. And I think what that did for me was it made me actually quite good at learning new languages. I think being bilingual as a child really does help you learn languages later on in your life, because you learn that there are different words for things, you learn the kind of different ways in which languages work. So I don't have a memory of not speaking English, but I'm told that when I learned English at first, I had a very strong Iranian accent, which I then obviously lost because now I sound pretty much British.
Did your parents do the classic thing of if you were out in public and they wanted to say something so no one else would understand you, they'd say it to you in Farsi?
We still do that. I still do that. It's so useful to have a language which is not common, because, you can chat about anyone at any point, at any time, anywhere, and they won't understand a word you're saying. I actually, got to be honest with you, when I was a child and my parents spoke Iranian in public, I actually used to feel quite embarrassed. Yeah, it used to embarrass me. I used to feel like, oh my God, I'm different. Can't you just speak English, Mum? Why are you? And my mum was quite loud. So, the Iranians speak very loudly. They're very kind of, animated, and they're not kind of calm and relaxed. And I'm pretty similar. But when I was growing up, especially in my teenage years, when everything embarrasses you and all you want to do is be like everyone else. I didn't like being different. I didn't like that my mum didn't speak English that well, and that my dad didn't speak English that well. Now, of course, I love it. I embrace it. But in those days, I actually felt quite embarrassed.
What do you think changed your mind on that?
I just think growing up and just understanding that difference is a good thing, and that there's no point in trying to conform, because actually conformity is something that society, I think, in nowadays doesn't embrace. And I think that, as a child, you have a different attitude towards things, and things get to you in a way that they don't as an adult. So I think literally, basically just growing up. I grew up. I realised that I was being a bit silly. So.
And did you learn to read and write as well?
No, I didn't. No, I didn't learn to read and write Iranian. So I can't. So, and actually my Iranian, probably, if I'm going to be honest with you, is the standard of a 7-8-year-old Iranian child. My language is very basic. I can't say complicated things. I can't say complicated sentences. I can understand it pretty much. But if you start talking about politics in Iranian, I'll be, oh, what are you saying?
So for you, it was a language of the home used with your family, but you didn't go to like a sort of Iranian after school?
No, there was quite a famous school in central London in Kensington where Iranian families would send their kids. My parents decided not to do that. So my parents and my grandparents moved here as well in the 1950s, and my parents followed in the 70s. They were very fixated on us trying to be British, us girls. There were 3 girls, so me and my 2 sisters. You must speak English. You must, learn perfect English. You must basically try and become part of British society and not so much embrace your Iranianness, right? Because my parents were not religious. We're not Muslims. There's no, I've never seen the inside of a mosque other than the ones I visited when I went to Istanbul with my husband. My grandparents were the same. We were a very agnostic family. So there wasn't that kind of push to embrace that side of Iranian culture. the other side of Iranian culture, you know, the Iranian New Year, Iranian food, all that. We did all that, but it wasn't as important in our family as it is in other families. So I think my grandparents, my parents very much said, we've moved to this country now. We want you to become, you know, British girls and to become part of this society, speak English, don't embrace your Iranian side too much and, you know, fit in.
Are you happy that amidst that you were still able to learn and speak?
Yeah, I mean, I think if you speak a language to your kids at home, they will basically learn it and understand it. I'm so grateful that I can actually speak it. Sometimes I get annoyed that I can't read and write it. I think my sister did actually end up learning to read and write. She went to classes later in early adulthood. But at that point, I think I was just too lazy. It's a tough language to learn.
It's tough, but to learn the writing system, I promise you will take you 2 weeks.
You reckon?
If you ever wanted to do it, I promise you it will take you 2 weeks. Could even take you less time than that. I'm saying
We need
that.
to do it. We need to film it and see how long it takes me.
2 weeks. I promise you 2 weeks. Not that you have to, but I've spoken to lots of people in your position, and I think it's commonly the case or the assumption that I haven't even tried it because it might be something that takes me such a long time, and it knocks your confidence before you've even given it a go. But I promise you 2 weeks. 2 weeks.
You know, you're writing in the wrong way. Well, wrong way. You're writing in a different way. I just find it, yeah. I just find it very, I just think I'd find it time consuming. And also...
You do have to put time in that 2 week period.
Yeah,
yes.
exactly.
But I didn't know a word of Arabic and learnt how to write it in 2 weeks.
Wow.
And you
And how
know
did you
Farsi.
do that? How did you do that? Did you just...
It was my undergrad degree. And I never, ever had to read Arabic in like a Romanized or Latin script because they just spent the first 2 weeks teaching us how to read and write Arabic. And the challenge is that the letters behave differently depending on the position of the word that they're in. But other than that...
Was that the first time you'd ever learned Arabic? Was during your degree? Wow.
Yeah. Kind of wild that I made that decision when I was 18.
Yeah.
But I'm very grateful to 18-year-old me.
At least when I did Italian at UCL, I'd done a GCSE. So I kind of had the basics of Italian. I was like, right, I'll go and, you know, dive deeper.
Let's talk about Italian now, because you're absolutely right that if you're raised bilingual, it helps you learn other languages in the future. And one of the reasons behind that you alluded to was that if you're raised bilingual, you understand that this is not inherently a cup. Yeah. It can be called different things. And already that begins to assist you when you're conceptualizing different concepts, like different vocab for things or different grammar. So at some point in your childhood or adolescence, another language takes your fancy. So talk to me about the entry point into Italian.
Well, I did Latin at secondary school and I absolutely loved Latin. I can't tell you how much I enjoyed doing the Latin GCSE. I felt it was not a difficult language for me to learn. Like I didn't even try hard and I just got it. And a little bit later, I visited Italy with my sister. We went on holiday there. I was 15, she was 17. God, I was 15, she was 17. We went to Italy on our own. We went to Rome.
Cool.
Went to Rome for 4 days.
You have cool parents.
Yeah, my parents, you see, Iranian parents, but not your typical Iranian parents. And so we went there on a weekend to Rome, and I just totally fell in love with Rome. And having loved doing Latin and just feeling that whole vibe of ancient Rome. And I just felt, you know, I really want to learn to speak this language properly. And there was a big Italian community actually in London then. And we used to kind of go into central London, me and my girlfriends, and hook up with different groups of Italian people. And kind of, it was just for us a way of tapping into European culture. And so when I got the opportunity to do the GCSE in Italian in sixth form, they were offering it like in a year, do the GCSE in a year. I did it and I felt, yeah, you know what, I'm going to apply to do Italian at university. I did apply to do Italian. I applied to do Italian history, but I never got an offer for history. I only got an offer for Italian. It's a long and boring story.
But you end up learning history in a languages degree anyway. Yeah. So you would get that covered.
My first choice university, I had an offer for history. My second choice university was UCL for Italian. And I didn't get into my first choice because I didn't get the grades. So I ended up doing just straight Italian. But actually, I was so happy that I was doing that because I felt that it would give me a chance. I took a gap year and I went to Rome. And then my third year, I went to Rome again. And it was just the most amazing experience.
What did you do in your Roman gap year and what did you do in your Roman third year?
In my Roman gap year, I went to Rome and I partied and had fun for almost an entire year with a lot of my friends, a lot of boys, a lot of drinking, a lot of just having a lot of fun and behaving like an 18-year-old person would.
That's exactly how you should use a gap year.
It was.
People who get a job.
No, but also actually I learned Italian so well that by the end of it, I was fluent, nearly native. So when I started my course at UCL and they were putting me into the oral group, you know, we had groups like top group, bottom group, middle group, whatever. They put me in the oral group with the Italians. That's how good my Italian was. I was literally streaming in Italian. My Italian was so good because I immersed myself in it. I didn't hang out with any English people when I was there, which a lot of people who do go to these foreign countries end up looking for the British contingent to hang out with. I did the complete opposite. I was like, I'm not interested in you if you're British. I only want to speak Italian. So yeah, that's what I did in my gap year. In my third year, I went to university in Rome and did a 1 year at the La Luis, which is a private university in Rome, and I read modern history.
And was that modern Italian history?
No, modern contemporary history global. And I did an exam at the end of it as well, which was an oral Italian exam, because at university they do...
Yes, I've heard this about Italian universities.
They ask you the questions and you have to
do
them.
like a kind of... it sounds, not that I know anything about this, when I hear people talk about their PhDs and sort of defending it, it sounds like every Italian university exam you have to orally defend your knowledge.
I know, it's crazy, but I loved it actually. I preferred it because I could just sit there and just talk. And again, in those days, my Italian was so good.
It also makes me think about like the classics and like rhetoric.
Yeah.
Is a sort of a modern evolutionary point of that.
And if you get 40 out of 40, you can then ask the tutor to ask you one more question to then get cum laude, which basically means you get more than top marks. So I asked the tutor, can you ask me one more question to give me a cum laude mark? And I got it. And that went towards my final mark as well at university. But the Italian system is complicated. I think actually Italian students work very hard. I know.
What a surprise.
Some students in Italy spend years at university.
Really?
It just takes a long time to finish your degree. I think it's got something to do with the fact that you can choose when to do your exams.
It's so Italian.
I know, it's so Italian. It's so relaxed and laid back.
And during your degree, you would have studied a bit of Italian literature, I'm assuming, maybe cinema. What were the cultural outputs from Italy that you remember studying?
I love studying Dante, so that was a big part of the degree. And also, I did a module in Italian cinema and we did The Bicycle Thief. I don't know if you've seen that movie. It's such a good movie. Italian cinema from the 1950s and 60s was just absolutely classic. And I remember it was just eye-opening because those weren't the kind of films that I would ordinarily watch. But the thing that I most loved about studying Italian was just being able to immerse myself in a culture that is so beautiful, and everything about Italy is just it's just different. It's just beautiful and smart and just, historical, and everything about it just sang to me. And I had the best 4 years. I mean, really, the best 4 years.
Did you get much of an opportunity to sort of study the many Italys, in that regional diversity in Italy is so strong, and its unification as a country is very young certainly compared to the UK as a country?
Absolutely. We studied all of that. And I learnt, just by living in Italy, you learn the differences between people who, live in the north and the south, the cultural differences, the differences in the way the economies worked. I mean, things are very different now, but when I lived in Italy, I feel that there was, I suppose there still is now, strong regional cultural identity. Like, I had an Italian boyfriend, as one does, who was Neapolitan, so we spent a lot of time going from Naples to Rome. And there's a real difference. I mean, people in Naples and in the south really almost consider themselves to be so different, like almost a different country to people in the north. the food.
It was a different country to the people in the North for a very long
exactly.
time,
The way in which they talk, the language. And I learned to recognise the differences. Like, I can now tell if you're a Northern Italian or Southern Italian. I can tell if you're from Venice. I can pretty much tell if you're from Milan. Rome, I'm not as good at weirdly, because the Roman kind of accent is quite just like generic Italian for me.
Yeah, like, I know that they go, dai. That's basically all I know. Dai.
And like Italian swear words as well, which I shan't repeat. But I learned that there are different swear words for different parts of the country. But yes, I feel that immersing myself in that way was something that was a privilege to be able to do. You know, it's a privilege to be able to go to a university, to study something you love, to come out of it and to feel that you have learned so much. Now, I will say that the actual degree wasn't necessarily useful in my career.
We will get onto that because
Yes.
I'm going to ask you about that. That's fascinating.
It wasn't as useful in my career as I would have liked it to have been. But, you know, at least in those days when you didn't get lumbered with huge university fees, I think you were able to do that. You're able to do a degree that really you loved, that taught you things, that immersed you in something, and you came out of it and then you were like, oh, okay, what am I going to do now?
I also think that my languages have not been particularly useful in my career. And I have had a very different career to you in that I only ever reached very, very low position at the BBC. But before I give you my hot take, why do you think your languages haven't been so useful?
Why has my language not been useful? Because I feel that maybe I chose a language that wasn't really... I mean, it's only spoken in Italy, right? So unless you're doing something specifically about Italy... When I left university, actually, do you know what? I kind of had a semi-dream to be Rome correspondent for the BBC. I felt that would be the best use of my language, the best use of my desire to be a TV news journalist, which I've wanted to be since I was a child. I never made it to be Rome correspondent, but I feel that it's unlike kind of French or Spanish, where you could find use for it talking about any other, you know, countries around Africa or, like, you know, Latin America. Italian is very focused. What's your reasoning?
Hang on.
What's your hot take?
Before I go into my hot take, you've missed out Iranian, Farsi. What about...
Yeah, I guess. But
Has that been helpful at all or useful?
absolutely not useful at all. I've never used it at work, ever. Someone asked me once, oh, there's a press conference, can you translate? And I'm like, no, my Farsi is not that good to translate. So unless you can translate, unless you can kind of maybe conduct an interview in that language, which again, is there really an appetite for that? Actually, you know, I did an interview recently with Andrea Bocelli, the opera singer who was at the Winter Olympics, and he spoke in Italian. I asked him questions in both Italian and English. That was useful, but there's less demand for interviews done in languages because people don't really want to sit and listen to someone else's voice overlapping, you know, the original language for that long.
But you would have made Bocelli feel so much more comfortable in that interview because you were asking questions in Italian.
Yeah, exactly. I asked him in English and Italian. So that was good. And I don't think he would have done the interview otherwise because I don't think he was very comfortable speaking in English.
I think this is some of the sort of invisible language brokering that can happen in a newsroom that doesn't always get spotted. When I was working in newsrooms, so I've worked in a BBC newsroom and a Vice newsroom, and the vast majority of times that I would have used my Spanish, Arabic, or very, very nascent Italian at that point, it was me pitching ideas. It was me sort of trying to go out of my way to think, okay, I need to find stories other people aren't doing. What have I got access to that maybe my colleagues don't? Let me type a few keywords in a language that's not English, and that would be how I found loads of stories. And I can remember one time at Vice, I was asked to translate an Arabic news clip that was relevant to a story we were working on. And other than that, again, all the stories that I did where I had to interview people in different languages, they were all stories that I had pitched. So it's not that I didn't use my languages in those jobs, but it's that almost every opportunity to had been self-started. It had been pitched myself rather than me being asked.
I think you have to do that. You have to have a level of that. I mean, don't forget, when I finished my degree, I did a postgrad in journalism. Then I went into journalism and I was a business and economics reporter.
Okay,
So I was doing that for
let's-
16 years, Sophia. 16 years.
That's a long time to be
Yes.
covering business.
Yes, and Italian business, as much as I love it, is there's not a massive demand for stories about Italian economics or business. So
Yes, there is, because they
Well-
often can't get a grip on things,
well,
respectfully.
I am not going to say anything about that. But there wasn't a huge demand for my linguistic skills. But learning a language isn't just about speaking the language, is it? It's about learning about a different culture. It's about changing the way that you think about things. And I think that helps you so much as a journalist, being able to speak to different audiences, understanding different cultures, understanding the way things work in other cultures. That is so useful as a journalist. So that's why I think doing languages is a great idea if you want to be a journalist. Just don't expect to, become that, Riyadh correspondent or Rome correspondent or, whatever.
We do not have very long until this book, How to Kill a Language, is going to be available in shops to buy. By the end of this century, it's estimated that roughly half of the world's languages may no longer be with us. I travelled the world, or as much of the world as I could, in an attempt to try and document why this is happening, investigating some of the causes, and also thinking about how could it be stopped? It will mean the world to me if you're able to pre-order it. David Crystal, the renowned linguist, just very kindly said that this is the best book on language endangerment that he's ever read. And I can't quite believe that he said that, and I'm very honoured. But this will be available very soon. It will really help the book if you can pre-order it. And that's not only a way to support this book, it's a way to support the Word for Word podcast as well. So if you have the time, it would really mean a lot to me if you would be able to pre-order it. How can you pre-order it? You can head to the description where you'll find a bunch of different links depending on where you want to pre-order it from. Okay, now I want to know, is Italian Maryam different to Farsi Maryam, different to English Maryam?
Oh gosh. In what sense?
Do you feel like different elements of your personality come out depending on the language you're speaking?
Yes, I feel far more comfortable and relaxed and lazy speaking Farsi because that's the language I speak to my mum and my dad. So I feel like, that feeling. With Italian, I feel much more engaged and, energetic because it's a language that I equate with being in Italy, speaking to Italian people, loving life. And then English is just English. I mean, English, I have the whole gamut of emotions. Angry, happy, sad, tired, bored, everything. That's just me. I think fundamentally, I speak English. I'm British, but I feel like that is my thing.
The way you just described it made it almost sound like English is a neutral.
English is everything. It's all encompassing. Italian, I love speaking Italian. It makes me happy. Iranian is the language I speak to my mum, my dad, my sisters if I'm trying to be private. My husband who learned to speak Iranian so he could speak to my family. So sometimes we even speak Iranian when we want no one else to understand what we're saying. But his Iranian's rudimentary, but he can understand it.
I love that he's at least tried to learn
I know, he did. He did a course when he met me. Yeah, I know. True love.
When you say it's rudimentary though.
I mean, he can understand basics. Like, if I say, can you come here? Can you go there? Where are we going? That man is looking at us funny. He'll understand that.
Are there any particular expressions that you love, either in Italian or Farsi, that you feel like help you express something that would be more challenging to say in English?
Yeah, there are tons of Iranian idioms. I'm sure you know about this because Iranian is so famous for having these crazy ways of saying things that when they translate into English have very different meaning. My favourite one is Jotun Kholiye, which basically literally translates as your place is empty. So your place here next to us is empty, which means I wish you'd been there. I miss you. I know, isn't that nice? Your place is empty. Then there's another one, which is Jigar to Bukharam, which means I eat your liver. It literally means Jigar is liver. Bukharam means I eat.
I love you?
Yeah, yes, I love you. I eat your liver.
I got that. Don't know how.
Another one I really like is Chok. How's it go? Chok to Saret. Chok means dirt. To Saret means on your head. So I throw dirt on your head, which basically means, it's a bad thing. Like, go away in a not nice way. Like, you're not a nice person in a sweary way.
Wow.
Like, F off, basically. Chok tu seret.
Chok tu seret.
Which basically means I throw dirt on your head. But the one Iranian word which there is absolutely no translation for in the English language is torof. I don't know if you've heard this word before. It's a really complex system of politeness and hospitality. And what it is you offer me, let's say, a cup of tea. And I say, no, I can't have it. You offer it again. I say, no, I can't have it. You offer it again. I say, no, I can't have it. And then I take it. That function of saying, no, I can't have it is called torof. And basically it's this weird way of being super polite and accepting hospitality, but doing it in a way that kind of like is the vibe that I don't want to accept it because it's too much, but yeah, give it to me.
I can see British people completely misunderstanding that. Did
Yes,
your family have any issues
yes,
when they arrived?
Yes. Because with torof, you expect the offer to be repeated until you accept. But with a British person, if you say, no, I don't want it, they'll be like, okay, fine, bye. So that's kind of a bit annoying. But actually, that is a super, and is there a word for that in the British language, English language? There isn't, is there? Torof.
No.
Like, torof nakon. Don't do that. Don't torof me. Torof nakon. Torof nemikonam. I'm not torofing you. In fact, I have to say torof because there's no English word for it. But yeah, Iranian is so beautiful and floral and poetic. I think it's actually very, very beautiful language. Doesn't sound beautiful sometimes, but the words which people use are just so gorgeous.
Am I right that it carries a lot of like loan words from European languages?
Yes. Oh gosh, yes. There's a lot of French in Farsi as well. Like, for example, ampoule, injection. We say ascenseur for lift. What else do we say? Ampoule, ascenseur. Merci. Merci is thank you. Bale is yes.
Wow.
I know, it's strange, right? So there are a lot of words that are quite similar in other languages.
What about expressions in Italian?
Oh, I don't know, I remember the very first thing I ever learned to say in Italian. Well, not the first thing. One of the first things I learned to say to Italian boys was il tuo sorriso mi fa morire. Your smile kills me. I know, it's so cheesy.
They probably loved that though.
I was such a cheesy child.
You would have learnt that because an Italian man would have absolutely said it to you at one point.
Yeah, maybe. When I was like 18 in my gap year, I may have said that or had that said to me. Gosh, Italian is just such a gorgeous language. I mean, there's every single Italian word, even the Italian word for, cup or whatever is just beautiful. La tazza. Everything is beautiful. Tavolo, table, microfono, microphone. I mean, just the way that it sounds like you're being embraced.
There is a wider pitch variation when you speak Italian than when you speak English.
Oh, yes, absolutely.
Because I remember when I was writing my book, some of the things that I was thinking about when it came to why people choose different languages to learn and what influences our decision making. And in some cases, are there any biases that people have? When someone says something like German is an ugly language, that's very unfair on poor old German, which has done nothing to deserve that. I say that having definitely made comments like that. But certainly since learning more about linguistics, I know that that's actually an awful thing to say about language.
But I think if you know a language, it's not ugly anymore. If you don't understand a language, it just sounds like a lot of sounds. Yeah, right. اگه من فارسی حرف بزنم الان معنیشه که من میتونم فارسی حرف بزنم ولی شما نمیفهمید چی دارم میگم چجوری حرف میزنم. When I speak Farsi, I've just said, you don't know what I'm saying, so for you it just might sound like some words, but I can understand what I'm saying.
There's absolutely no reason for me to say that. In theory, there's no reason for me to say that's ugly or beautiful. It's just a language.
Who are we to say?
Yeah.
But we do say it.
I'll
often say to people, Iranian sounds ugly, but actually if you know what's being said, it's really beautiful.
I think in my work I've wanted to unpack why we think some languages are beautiful, why we think some languages are ugly, when a whole society tends to label one language as ugly. Sometimes I worry about are we calling a language ugly because actually we're carrying biases? So
I think if you don't understand a language, it can just sound like a bunch of sounds strung together. And that, to our ear, is uncomfortable.
but I also don't know if we think Italian is beautiful because in the cultural imaginary, what have we associated Italian with? What have we been taught to associate with Italy? And certainly in the UK, we've been taught to associate it with beautiful cultural output, opera, food.
Do you know what? I've never thought about it that way, but that is so interesting.
Yeah.
So interesting. Because actually you're right, because German culture, it's not as, in the UK at least, it's not considered as...
Despite also producing opera, despite also producing great food.
Yeah.
I'm going to read you a paragraph. I love the language, that soft bastard Latin Lord Byron wrote in his poem Beppo. Did you ever have to study Beppo? No, it's in English anyway. Italian for him melts like kisses from a female mouth and sounds as if it should be writ on satin. In contrast, English was whistling, grunting guttural, which we're obliged to hiss and spit and sputter all. Hundreds of years later, Italian still holds a certain allure. The language learning platform Babbel ran a poll in 2024 searching for the world's sexiest accent, and the 6,000 people they surveyed placed Italian at the top of the list. Linguists over the years have speculated as to why Italian consistently holds this position. Is it its purring, rolling R, its undulating pitch? Or is it because of our often positive association with Italy and the values we place on that culture, the food, the music, the way people look, as inseparable from its language? The same survey reported in the Daily Mail contains a clue. German was considered the most direct language and English the most polite. Anyone who has met either a German or an English person knows that this is hardly their language's fault.
Yeah, so basically what it's reflecting is the people rather than the actual sound, right?
Yeah.
But it's funny because not all Italian is the same. There are some accents in Italy that sound very different to others that are less melodic, less undulating, more clipped. The further north you go, the more clipped the Italian is, the less undulating, the less kind of, sing-song.
Yes, and it's whether do we have personal tastes that affect what brings us closer or further to a language, or is it sort of societal ideas that we can't help?
I think it's a mix.
Absorbing. Yeah,
I think, but it's a really interesting point.
And guttural, for example, guttural is often used as a word to describe ugly languages. Guttur is throat, isn't it, in Latin?
Is it?
I think something to do with the throat. Is there a reason that a language with guttural sounds should be less attractive? No.
No, but Farsi, Iranian, has a lot of sounds. Khubi means are you well? Khubam, I'm well. So I just have quite a lot of...
Yeah.
Don't worry, I'm not bringing up anything. It's a way of doing it inside your mouth rather than from your throat.
Yeah.
I'm sure you can do it.
Yeah, in Arabic.
Go on, give it a go.
What? I'm trying to think of...
So that's quite a guttural kind of...
Al-Kharif.
Al-Kharif. What does that mean?
Al-Kharif is a monsoon.
Oh, wow. Rando.
That is very random, yeah.
Rando word.
That's the monsoon that happens in Oman every year. Yeah.
Oh, I'd love to go to Oman.
It's so cool. I highly recommend it.
Bucket list destination.
So your first job after you graduated, was that already doing business news?
Yeah, absolutely. So it was radio, independent radio news, which is part of the ITN news company. And it was doing business and economics reporting and producing for radio for LBC and also for independent radio news. So it was like providing all the commercial radio stations with their hourly news bulletins and reports and packages. And I did that for a couple of years. And then I started as a presenter at the BBC 2 years later. So I got a very, very kind of starter presenting job at the BBC where I don't know if you remember on the remote control. Actually, you still have the red button on the remote control, but there was this thing where you'd press the red button on your remote control and I would pop up reading news headlines on a loop, which would just repeat over and over again. And they were business news headlines. And that was like a very basic starter presenting job, but it got me into the BBC. And as you well know, it's tough to get a presenting gig at the BBC. And from there, I then started presenting from the London Stock Exchange as a reporter
doing slots into shows on BBC World News, which was the international arm of the BBC News channel. And then from there, I moved to anchoring those shows in which I was doing my little slots. And then from there, I moved on to doing business news on the UK arm of the channel. And then eventually I became a main news presenter in 2019 and then got my own show a couple of years ago. So yeah.
To the casual observer, it looks like such a glamorous job and a really cool job. But
I mean, it's cool. It's not glamorous.
Do you think there's a really common misconception that audiences might have about your job?
Common misconception. Yes, I get asked a lot about the way in which my day pans out. And I think people think that I have loads of people working for me and writing stuff for me. And, no, like a lot of the stuff we do, we have to do ourselves. So I obviously have a team, but I have a lot of input into how my program is made, who I'm interviewing, how I want it to feel and look, what stories we're leading on. I take quite a big editorial role in my show because it's my program, so I'm very invested in it. The one thing people ask me a lot is, do you get money for clothes as a BBC News presenter? And I'd like to say I get money for nothing. Okay, everything that you see me wearing, I buy myself. Is it glamorous? Yeah, I mean, I went to Rome. I covered the papal conclave.
That must have been really cool.
It was amazing. I mean, first of all, I went there when Pope Francis passed away, and that was a deeply emotional moment that transcended religion. I mean, it was a once-in-a-lifetime event for me. I mean, I'm not Catholic, obviously, but I really felt very keenly the way in which Pope Francis touched so many lives, and the atmosphere in Rome was really something else. And so I was so honoured to be there, but it's hard work. Like being on location as a news anchor or correspondent, you're doing very long days, you're constantly on your feet, you have to be across the story very quickly. I mean, I woke up in the morning, I got a phone call from the news desk, Pope Francis has died, can you get on a plane and go to Rome? So that was a normal morning that turned into pack my suitcase, go to Rome. By that evening, I was in St. Peter's Square, standing on a box with the Vatican, the Basilica behind me, talking about, what was happening in Rome that day. Obviously, there's that element of, I'm somewhere in a foreign country reporting on one of the biggest stories of the year. But then on the flip side, you have to do the job properly. You have to do that story justice. You have to tell that story in a way that is respectful and knowledgeable. And, there's also an extra layer of responsibility because you are BBC News. And so you feel that kind of, extra pressure to make sure that you're telling that story in the correct way, in a factual way, in an impartial way, which is absolutely our bottom line. It's it's our bread and butter. It's what makes us who we are. So I think, there are some elements of this is amazing, but there are also elements of this is really, really hard work. And I don't think people understand that. They think that you just kind of flounce in and out of stories, but no, you work really hard. And I know a lot of people work hard, but it is not an easy job.
I really want to ask you about news voice, because in the work that I've done sort of in between language and social media, I once did an article for the BBC on, is there an influencer accent? Because especially with the ascent of TikTok, people were talking about, is there a particular way that vertical video people are speaking? And I saw loads of similarities between how they were speaking and some of the things I was taught in my broadcast journalism masters of how to speak when you're on the radio.
Right.
So I remember being taught when I was doing radio bulletins to always sound mildly concerned and to and to never sound like I was finishing a sentence, because if I sounded like I was finishing a sentence, the listener may, in a pre-digital world, they would switch.
What about
station.
when you are actually finishing a sentence? Then what?
Let me think of an example.
Finish a sentence without finishing a sentence.
The traffic is really bad today.
Ooh, I'm not sure. That sounds quite urgent. Sounds like you're really upset by it.
Yeah.
And I get it, Sophia. The traffic is annoying, but come on, girl. It's not that bad.
The Prime Minister said he would do something about it, although time will tell whether something will actually happen. Meanwhile, in Manchester, a bit like that.
Okay, I see. Yeah. That's quite commercial radio, that vibe, I
I
think.
was taught by
Yeah.
a radio person from commercial radio, yeah.
Are you asking me if I have a BBC voice?
Yes, I am.
Yeah, absolutely I have a BBC voice. Yeah. Also, have you noticed how when you present the news, you don't breathe? Like, you don't hear people breathing. So my big thing is, okay, let me give you an example. So, I don't know. The traffic today was very bad. It was so bad that, in fact, people have said the traffic has never been so bad as it has been these days. And of course, the traffic is extremely bad. Cars are everywhere. And the cars are really clogging up the roads. And it's such a difficult time right now. These cars are really bad. Do you hear me breathing?
No.
But I breathed. So that's my
Using
BBC
your
voice.
diaphragm?
Yeah. So you don't hear, you shouldn't really hear a presenter breathing. But in real life, I'm like,
Where did you get diaphragm training?
I didn't. I just learnt it. I didn't get any training. They didn't train us in my course to talk. They got us to send a tape in at the very beginning to get a place on the course. I had to send a tape of me reading tongue twisters. She sells seashells on the seashore, that kind of thing. And then when we got on the course, we didn't really get a lot of training in how to speak, but you just kind of learn. Like when I first started presenting, I sounded so wooden, like I was monotonous and robotic. As I got more confident, I think I got better. Yeah, my God, when I first started presenting on the BBC, people would like write on these TV forum things, oh my goodness, that Maryam Moshiri, she's so wooden and boring.
That's horrible.
Well, you know, it was true. I was kind of like this because I was so nervous. And as I got more relaxed...
Well, it's an absolutely normal physiological response
I wasn't a good presenter for many, many years. Like, it took me a long time to get confident and get relaxed and to be able to just, you know, be myself.
That's good advice to anyone listening, watching, who wants to do what you have done. I think it's nice to say, I think lots of people want sort of quick tips about how to get good at things. And actually, it's often the case that you need to put the time in.
Yeah, you need to put the time in. You need to put the time in. Absolutely. And I think there is a kind of reluctance nowadays to do that. People want things very quickly. They want it to happen quickly. They want it to happen immediately. It's like whole society is changing, and you know, you can access things quickly and things happen for you quickly and you can get all the information quickly. But I think that there are some things, some skills that you just need to hone. But you can hone them at home. You can sit in front of a mirror and, you know, read things out loud, practice writing, practice reading. But I think for me, especially, it's taken me a long time to get here.
This is a Virelect original podcast, but did you know we don't only make podcasts? Virelect is the company that I set up a year ago, and it's where I do all of my social media and journalism innovation. That includes making brand new tools for journalists. It also includes the vertical video training and workshops that I deliver. So if you want to support this podcast, as well as listening to it, as well as sharing it, there are other things that you could do. Like, for example, try out one of my tools. You could try Sophia, which is an iOS app that helps journalists and experts amplify their work on algorithms on TikTok and Instagram by letting you turn your work into scripts and then giving you a teleprompter to film them straight away. You can get a free month, actually, if you use the code word for word. Just head to the link in the description to download it.
Maryam, it's now time for the quiz section of this podcast.
I was not informed about this.
That's okay, because the objective of this quiz, I've tried to find at least one language fact I hope you'll never have heard of before.
Okay.
So my objective is for you to get 0 points, because it means you've learnt 3 new language facts.
Nul point. I'm on the road to nul point.
However, if you do know any of them, you get to reveal to our audience that you're a know-it-all.
Which I'm not, so you're safe.
Okay. First question. Who is the most named woman in the Quran?
Oh, is it Khadija?
No?
Who is it then?
Maryam.
No. No way. I had no idea.
Not only is she the most named woman, she's the only named woman.
And who is she?
She's the mother of Isa, who I know in Catholicism as Jesus. So
Mary.
She's there's a whole surah about her. So I wondered if you knew that because your name's Maryam.
No.
But
I clearly haven't done the research into my own name.
Okay, one language fact that you
Mary
got.
Moshiri strikes again.
Question number 2. Why did Mussolini try to ban lei.
Lay?
He tried to ban the formal
Oh, lay.
lei.
Ah, lay. Okay. Why did he try and ban it? I have no idea.
He tried to make all Italians use voi instead of lei.
Right.
And the reason he did that was because he thought that lei was an influence from Spanish. And a lot of the changes and sort of purification of Italian that he tried to do during his dictatorship involved sort of attempting to oust external or foreign influence away from Italian.
I have no idea.
Even including, don't call it a croissant, call it a cornetto. You know, he took loads of words and tried to sort of really synthetically influence how Italians spoke Italian.
Absolutely fascinating. Had no idea about that. My Mussolini knowledge clearly is zero.
Pretty good. I mean, that's reassuring to hear. But did it work? No, because to speak formally to someone singular, you still use lei. This blew my mind. Question number 3. The term newsreader in English comes from the age of the wireless, when you were literally reading the news on the radio. But where does the term news anchor come from as used more in American English?
Is it from the sailors who used to listen to the news and then put their anchor down?
No, but I like the way you're thinking. You're thinking it's got nothing to do with the news industry, which would be
It's
correct.
literally all about shipping.
Anchor is used in another domain that's not got anything to do with boats. I also had no idea about this.
Anchor, ranker, anchor, shanker. No, can't think of it.
I think about sport.
Anchor, sport. Nope.
It comes from relay racing, where someone in the team is the anchor leg. And the anchor leg in relay racing, this is Sophia Smith Galer, who knows nothing about sports.
Is it the first one or the last one?
But I read about this morning. It's the last person in a relay race who is considered to be the fastest runner.
Right. The Usain Bolt in that famous race that Jamaica won.
But I imagine that they're the sort of they're the safe pair of hands or pair of legs. And they are the one that you trust to put at the end in order to seal the deal.
Really? Is that where the word news anchor comes from?
And it comes from
Someone
this
who
idea.
will basically, someone who is trustworthy, who carries the team, who carries the news. Okay.
Someone who carries the team, yeah.
Wow. I had no idea.
Well, that's 3 points to me, which is a glorious victory because I've further radicalised you into language nerdery, although you were pretty much a big language nerd before coming on this show.
I feel they're very random facts that I've learnt. Very random. I'm not sure if the news anchor one I will use again. That will be a dinner party.
It blew my mind.
That'll be like a dinner party trick. Hey guys, do you know where the word news anchor comes from?
But I thought exactly the same as you. I was like, it's to do with the ship, but why? Then I thought, why? What's it got to do with a ship? But it's because it has nothing to do with a ship. It's all about relay
I thought it was to
racing.
do with ships. But yeah, relay racing, amazing. But when did relay racing first start though? Surely news anchors came before relay races.
Presumably not.
When was the first relay race ever run? Was it
I don't know,
Olympics?
ancient Greece.
Oh, do you think they did relays in those days? Okay.
I know nothing about sport.
I'm so going to Google it later and then write in and put a letter of complaint.
We don't have that facility. You can't complain about word for
Oh,
word.
what a shame. I'll find a way.
Because you studied Italian at university, how do you feel when you see reports about how language departments at universities are disappearing or certainly being hurt right now?
Yeah, I feel it's a shame. I think language, as I mentioned earlier, is such an important subject. I mean, learning a different language is not just about being able to speak that language. It's about opening your mind to different cultures, being able to speak to different ideas and thoughts, different energy. I think it's so important that people have choice
and options.
I get worried about it, especially because I wonder if it is the same with Italian. I wonder if it was always offered at loads of universities. But I even remember when I tried to find a university that offered both Spanish and Arabic, I only had about 6 or 7 universities in the UK to choose from. My choices were almost made for me when I applied. I don't know what the picture is like now. But I worry that there are going to be whole regions of the UK where a language is lost, and you'd have to move really far away, basically, if you wanted to learn a particular language.
In my day, you had to do a language GCSE. I don't think that's the case anymore. Am I wrong or am I right?
So there will be programs. If you take Durham as an example, when I was there were people who did Italian post A-level, and there was a course called Ab Initio from the beginning. So my Arabic course was an Ab Initio course, because it's not common for Arabic to be offered as a GCSE or A-level in UK schools. So I think Ab Initio was offered for languages where they had the support and the infrastructure to teach people who'd not been able to get a GCSE or like an equivalent qualification.
But what I'm saying is, is there now, do you think, a lack of, because there's a lack of pressure to do a language GCSE, do you think people just don't bother? Because when I was at school, part of the curriculum was you had to choose a language. And I'm not sure you have to anymore for GCSEs, which means that there are loads of kids who just drop all the languages and don't take them any further than 14.
You're right. Labour introduced that in 2004.
Yeah.
They took away that. Did you know Italian's only taught in about 1% of UK schools?
Wow.
So if anyone who's listening or watching, if you've been able to study Italian at school in the UK, that's actually very unusual. It's not one of the commonly offered languages. It was offered at my mum's school, I think, when she was at school.
It was offered at my school, but it's not offered now at my school, because my daughters go to the same school that I went to, and they don't offer it now.
What advice have you given to your daughters about language learning, given what they've been exposed to via you?
My girls and my son, I have an 8-year-old son as well. None of my kids have an aptitude for languages. And I've made the big mistake of not speaking Farsi or Iranian to them, probably because I can't speak it that amazingly myself. So they're not bilingual. And they just don't have the kind of level of interest. My eldest is doing Mandarin at school, and she's very keen, but the further along she gets, she's realizing how tough it is. Like, it's a very difficult language to master.
That does happen with every language, though. At the beginning, where you're learning, hi, hello, how are you? And you take to it and you think, oh, I'm good at this. And then
I'm fluent.
All of a sudden, it's like, now you have to talk about a Chinese politics from the 1950s. Go. Because when you get to sort of GCSE A-level, that's what they expect you to do. And suddenly it's like,
And also the writing, you have to do the calligraphy. And
oh my gosh. And it's not phonetic.
No. She is struggling, but she really enjoys it. So, maybe she'll do the GCSE, I don't know. It's early days, she's only a year 8. But my kids don't have that aptitude for learning languages that I had, and my sisters had. And I wonder whether that's a little bit because they're not bilingual. And,
Also, it's easy for me to say everyone should learn languages and be evangelical about it. Ultimately, in theory, I could have fallen in love with maths and be making a podcast right now about maths and being
evangelical. In which case,
evangelical
I would
about
not
that.
be here.
Yeah, you would
because
be.
I can't even do long division. I can't even multiply. My maths is so bad.
But, it's perfectly normal and fine for people to not feel like they're great at languages.
Yeah. I think either you kind of are or you're not, But there's willing and there's desire, and then there's aptitude and a natural kind of ability. They're two different things.
I don't want to be held to this. This was a thought I had the other day that I'm entertaining at the moment. But I was thinking about how, why have we turned languages into GCSEs and exams? Why do we grade them? When you do PE at school, you're not, I wasn't graded on PE. I was not good at sport.
You can do the GCSE though, PE.
You can if you want to. But I was made to do sports up until my last year of school.
Yeah.
Ungraded, and it was more about fitness is healthy and important to be part of the fabric of your school week, and obviously your future working life. It's preparing you to be an adult. And I thought, wow, imagine if like as well as PE there was a language lesson and you weren't ever graded on it. It's the idea that this is healthy and positive for you, regardless of winning a grade in it. So removing the pressure of feeling like you have an aptitude or not.
Yeah, and that would probably make it a lot easier for some people to cope, because I think some people, the minute you start testing someone on something, immediately, it becomes problematic for them. Not everyone is made for tests, but everything's graded these days. Music, you get the grades. Even PE, you do GCSE. I mean, it's just, there's a lot of testing at schools, and I get it. I get why, but I think if you love a language, the way to learn it, not necessarily from a book, right?
Yeah.
It's to immerse yourself. Watch the TV shows, listen to the songs, try and read the books, try and find people who speak that language and just speak to them. I learned the bulk of my Italian speaking Italian to Italians and watching Italian TV and listening to Italian radio.
For someone listening who might be like, after listening to that episode, I have to go learn Italian or Farsi, what would you recommend they consume?
I think, if you're going to watch a movie, and I think you can do this, can't you, on Netflix and Disney, just put it on Italian. Try and just listen and watch and immerse yourself in media that is in Italian or Iranian.
I can really recommend Too Hot to Handle Italia. It was so good.
Right. Okay. Yeah. Good.
Have you not watched it?
No, I've not watched it.
You're going to watch it and be like, oh my goodness.
Thank you, Sophia. Is it a movie?
It's a reality TV program about really horny people.
Right. Okay.
That's all I will.
I'm very scared.
I'm allowed to say.
I'm very scared and very worried. I'd like to escape this room, please. I feel triggered. So I would say that. I would also say, just find. I know it's easier said than done. Just find some people with whom you can, speak, because that is the way to do it.
For Italian, you can come to the monthly language bar that we hold right here at Casa Italiana.
Yes, and for Farsi, you can, use. Is there Duolingo for Iranian?
There must be. I'd be so surprised if they didn't have it.
Do you use Duolingo? Everyone raves about it. I've never actually tried it.
No, because exactly like you, whenever I call them language sprints, so every now and again, I suddenly feel despairing about the languages that I have, because I rarely have an opportunity to practice them. Italian is the one I get to practice the most. And every now and again, I think, oh, my Spanish is so rusty. Oh, my Arabic is so bad. And I will do a sprint, and I will set myself 5 weeks where I go into sort of laser focus mode. And I give myself a checklist, a weekly checklist. A daily checklist would be too much for me. I don't have enough time.
No one needs a daily checklist.
Yeah, I don't have enough time in my working life for that. But in a week, I can absolutely make time to listen to a podcast or watch a show, make little vocab lists for myself. And I watch things, and I try and fake immersion. So if I can't spend 5 weeks in Beirut, how do I turn my life into Beirut? When I did my last Italian sprint, I only cooked from Italian recipes online. Yeah. If I wanted to come up with ideas of things to cook. So
all your food and vocab and herbs vocab just improved massively.
And news, if I wanted to find out news. I also play video games in Italian as well, which is really helped.
That's a really good idea.
Yeah.
Anything really that will help you in that way, that will immerse you in that way, is a really good idea. When I went to Rome to cover the funeral of Pope Francis and the conclave that elected Pope Leo, I found that just within those few weeks that I was there, my Italian it was like almost someone just, put some WD-40 on my linguistic joints, and I just felt everything being oiled, and I was just much more fluent. By the end of it, I felt I was back to a little bit more my old self. At the beginning, those first few days, what's the word for this? What's the word for that? But you kind of get into it. It's like a muscle that you have created in your mind by learning that language many years ago as a child or as a teenager, and then you just work it.
Yeah, it just needs a little bit of love and patience.
Yeah.
Is there a language that ever got away?
Yes, 100%. I would have loved to have learnt Mandarin. Yeah, I would have loved to learn Mandarin.
Was the opportunity ever made available to you?
I did try and sign myself up to an evening course at SOAS when I was in my 20s, but I ticked the wrong box, and when I turned up to the class, it was Japanese. I know, I'm such a muppet. Am I allowed to say that I'm a muppet? I don't offend Kermit. So. I'm very sorry, Kermit.
But yes, and then I kind of did Japanese for a few weeks, but my heart wasn't in it. And by then the Chinese course had already started. And then after that,
If there's one idea that our audience could take away with them about language that's really important to you, what would it be?
I think learning a new language is something that broadens so much in your personality, your life, the way you live your life. I think it's such an amazing thing to have another language. I think it opens so many doors for you, both, within the world itself, but also inside your own mind and in your heart and in the way that you see the world. I think it broadens your horizons. It makes you a far more rounded person. I think and I know so many people, and it's similar with music as well. I hear people say, I used to learn the violin, but I gave it up after grade 1 and I regret it. Oh, I so wish I'd, learnt French, or I so wish I'd learnt Spanish, or I so wish I'd concentrated in those German classes. I think there is an element to knowing another language that just kind of, I don't know, it's something that adds so much value to your life. And it's not just about going and being able to order a beer in a foreign country. It's about opening your mind to a world, right, which is out there, and it's so much more accessible to you if you can speak different languages.
1 in 4 Brits regret never learning a foreign language.
I can totally believe it. Totally believe it.
And that will be because lots of those Brits do already actually speak another language. But of course, many don't. And perhaps many have the experience like you just described of you were sort of exposed to it when you were younger, gave it a go. For some people, you don't get on with it. Maybe actually because you have a bad teacher or you're being made to learn from a boring textbook rather than going to Italy when you're 18 for a year and partying hard.
I don't know what you're talking about. That wasn't me.
That wasn't you.
That was
okay,
me.
that was the
me.
other
And
Maryam
anyone
Moshiri.
who saw me in that club, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry about the way I behaved. It will not happen again. I don't drink anymore. Well, I do, but only very little But yeah, I think there are lots of people out there actually who grow up bilingual, because there's lots of people who come to this country who are immigrants, first gen, second gen.
Or speak Welsh.
Speak Welsh. And, I think that people like that are very lucky. And, it's a superpower.
Maryam, thank you so much for joining us on Word for Word.
It's been lovely. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you so much for listening to Word for Word. This is a Virelect original series recorded at Casa Italiana in Clerkenwell, filmed by Umar Mehtab, executive produced by Seren Jones, and, well, everything else by me, Sophia Smith Galer. You can find us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and social media by searching Word for Word Podcast. And if you like this episode, subscribe to my channel, or copy the link and send it to a friend or relative that you think will enjoy it too.